Hello and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. Hope all of you are doing amazing out there and enjoying yourselves and those around you as much as possible. I want to just start off by first saying this again. In no way, in any episode, am I judging anyone for the lives that they live, the actions that they take in their lives, or the things that they think and believe within themselves in their livelihoods. Like, that's not my place. I always want to stress that I'm not trying to push any ideas or thoughts or concepts or lifestyles or anything on you. I'm more or less just bringing up food for thought, so to speak. Like, in a way that I hope it's not coming off in a judgmental way. I feel like I say this in every episode, and I hope that it's being received well. I don't think I haven't gotten any negative comments or anything like that. So I just more or less think about these things after I release the episode, and I want to just make sure that no one is being felt as though they're being attacked by the words that I'm saying, and I never want anyone to feel that way because, again, we each live our own lives, and there's no one else that can judge you for the things that you decide to believe and feel and do in your life. I mean, it's your life for you to live. So the things that I bring up, they're just things that I conceptualize, and I feel like they would bring more empowerment to each individual as we kind of think about who we are, and I think that when we get to the root of who we are, we realize that we have so much more potential than maybe we've understood before. And that's the only thing I wish to bring about is that, with that idea of aging, it had nothing to do with the numeric age or physical aging. It doesn't matter. Like, that's not what I was trying to get at all. It's the true nature of who we are. And I believe that is something that transcends any of these physical experiences that we're having because, again, most of our experiences and our understanding of life is intangible. It's like it's our thoughts, it's our feelings, and I'm going to speak more about this in a little bit, but if you really think about that, the circumstances and things that have made up who you are up to this moment, they're thoughts and feelings and maybe even just memories of experiences that you've had. They no longer exist, but they've imprinted something within this mental space, this intangible space of who you are that has caused you to live the life that you live, has caused you to be exactly where you are now. And as we kind of think more about this intangible space and looking at that more critically as to what that really is, I feel like there can be so much more empowerment and understanding and radical parts of life and bring us to just more happiness and more fulfillment within our lives. So that's what I want to get across is just creating more empowerment in each and every individual and questioning those things that maybe we haven't really questioned before because I'm not sure why we haven't questioned them before, but we haven't. And I think that as we start questioning it more, we can kind of gain more understanding in the situation. So that's kind of what I want to just kind of start off with. And again, anything that anyone tells you, any words that anyone tells you, do not just believe them. Don't just take them for what they are. Always consider them for what you feel they mean to you. And think about them for yourself and then decide if that's something that you want to hold on to. I mean, these are even the words that I'm saying, and even if I want to say empowering things to you, if you don't resonate with them, then you don't have to go along with it. Like, that's not something I'm trying to force on you. So always take everything that you hear, everything that is told to you by anyone else. Always take that with a grain of salt and try to figure out if it means something for you personally. And then go from there, So that's all I want to start off with that. So yeah, I'm gonna get going with this episode because I think that there is a lot to speak about with this idea of emotions. And again, like I speak about emotions so much within this podcast and how it impacts our lives and our decisions and the things that we want to accomplish. And I think that there is there's so much with it. And again, there's so much that we don't understand with emotions. And yeah, I'm excited to speak about it. So I'm going to get going with this box here. Thank you so much for all these topics and everything. I swear to you, these are incredibly expansive as far as just with my understanding of just life and our experiences, because this is what makes up life in itself. So I enjoy all these topics, and thank you for sending these in. If you have any thoughts or topics or anything that you'd like to send in, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com or any of the social media pages that I will link at the end of this podcast. So the upcoming topic is going to be on creativity. And I mean, this is something that I've always been fascinated with, this idea of creativity, because it expands in so many different areas. But my original ideas of creativity had to do with art and people that did either sculptures or painting or, just drawing or things like that. These are all people that have always fascinated me because I thought that they had exceptional amount of creativity. But I feel like creativity goes so much further than just the things that people can artistically create, and it can be something meaningful for all of us as we kind of think about our lives and the things that we want to accomplish in our lives, and how creativity is something that is a key part of almost everything that we do. So creativity is something that's really amazing. I'm excited for that topic. And again, yeah, if you have any topics, everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. I love each and every one of them. So yeah, that's that. I'm going to get going with this idea of emotions, which is, I mean, it's something that's truly amazing and also very, very confusing in many ways, as far as just not necessarily the emotions themselves being confusing, which they can be, but just the idea of what emotions are. I feel like that in itself is kind of this rabbit hole that once we start going down, it's kind of hard to figure out which way we're going, like which way is up when we're really thinking about this idea of emotions. And the biggest part of that is going back to this idea of them being intangible. Like they are a very real part of our lives, and the decisions that we make, they go into the creation of everything that's around us. Someone had to have passion for something new that they wanted to create. Someone had to have, some kind of emotion tied to the things that they wanted to create or wanted to bring about in this world. And I think that that's something truly amazing. But the more amazing part of it all is that it started from this intangible place. And we seem to take these emotions in this intangible domain and translate it and transfer it into the physical world. And now sometimes we do that kind of responsively because we feel something sad and we start crying. And that's a physical representation of this emotion. But, there's so many other levels to how we're expressing our emotions, and what degree in which we have control over those emotions and the expression of them. So I know that may sound a little confusing right now, but I'm going to kind of speak more about that in a minute. But the biggest part of this idea of emotions is that it's impactful towards our entire lives. The things that we think, the things that we do, these are parts of us that again create the very life that we live. And with that being the case, it's something that we have to pay attention to. As I've spoken about time and time again in this podcast, emotions are very indicative of things that we're experiencing, and they can tell us more about ourselves, the things that we want more of in our lives, and the things that we don't want more of in our lives. And when we start paying attention to that more and more, we can start deciding the things, the inputs that are coming in, if they are something that serves us and serves that emotion that we want to feel, or if it's something that's disempowering and something that we do not want to hold on to. But we have to recognize first what we want in our lives and what we want to feel. And the second thing is to recognize that we have control over that in varying degrees. And the varying degrees, it's something that's a big part of this idea of emotions and really becoming in tune with them. And that's something I think I want to express it as, is becoming in tune with your emotions and not necessarily controlling them. Because control is something that it's a forceful thing. And emotions, just like thoughts and other things, they come in and they pass by like waves or like a breeze. And it's not something that we can really force. But we can start moving with our emotions and letting them tell us what we want to do next and what we want to have into our lives and what we want to bring into our lives moving forward. We know that when we feel joy, when we feel love, when we feel acceptance, that these are things that start generating emotions within us that are empowering. They make us feel good and make us feel as though the steps that we're taking are in the right direction. And these emotions of love and aspiration and motivation, these things can be generated solely from within you. These are people that are intrinsically motivated, people that can create those emotions and those feelings and that drive just from within themselves. And this is something that we do on different levels, again, every single day, how we can create love and laughter. Whether you have children, let's say, and you're having a bad day, and maybe you just have like a newborn that's, happy and smiling and stuff, and you're having a bad day, and you change your energy because they're smiling and they're laughing and you're trying to make them smile and laugh. So now you're starting to do goofy things and you're being silly, and you start changing your emotional vibration to something that is more in tune with something that's joyous, something that's blissful in a way. And in that, we have to recognize that we are the ones that are creating that emotion by mentally changing how we're looking at things or what we're doing in our lives. And it's something that's a strange kind of give and take that happens, because although actions do impact our emotions can also impact a situation and change things radically in the external world. And just as we have those positive vibrations, those positive emotions that start coming towards us and filling us with that feeling of just joy and connection and whatever that may be, we also have those negative emotions or those negative vibratory emotions. And I like to think of this as vibration because it's all just energy, It's like, the emotions that we have, they're energy. And when you feel abundance of love and joy, you feel it in your body. It's like it's electric, It's like it's something that you can say, yes, I'm happy. I'm in so much love right now. And you can maybe even identify that clearly as to what that is. But there's also that equal and opposite emotion of sadness and depression and just anxiety and these things that bring us down in a way. And I don't want to say that they're bad or good because, they're all just emotions, they're just energy, but just as positive emotions and that love and that, joyous feeling can fill you with just immense joy and happiness within your body. Those negative emotions of sadness and depression and anxiety, those things can fill you with negative energy. And again, not positive or negative in a bad way, but just in a vibratory way, in a way that brings your physical body down. You know that when you're depressed or you're not really feeling the greatest, your environment isn't really the best. Like maybe you don't even want to do stuff. Maybe you don't want to get out of bed. Maybe just like the energy itself is low. But when you're happy, when you're joyous, when you're excited about something, you can't even sleep. Like you are ready to get up and get going and start doing that thing that maybe is bringing you happiness. So we can see that, just on a different level, that emotions not only correlate with the way that we're feeling inside, but also our physical actions. And that is something that's so big about this because we can't see emotions. We can't physically touch them or manipulate them, yet they impact our physical life. And, from everything that I speak about in this podcast, it really comes down to this because our life that we live, it's like it's the things that we dream of, the things that we want to accomplish, the things that we strive for. And if our emotional experience impacts our actions so much as they do all the time, then we have to look at them in a critical eye when it comes to the things that we want to have in our lives. And that's everything from happiness to a new job. Emotions can be something that overwhelms people so much that it stops them from even pursuing the things that they want to pursue. Something can seem like it's a challenge, and immediately the thought comes up, oh, that's going to be too hard. And then they get in that position and it seems stressful. Now these emotions are following because they decided to listen to that emotion that followed that thought. And that's something that's important about this idea of emotions as well, is that they're constantly impacted by our thoughts as well. And we can manipulate emotions through that avenue. Our thoughts are just as intangible as our emotions. So, like has to influence like. So intangible has to influence intangible. So these intangible emotions that we feel, they can only be impacted by something else intangible, and that is the thoughts that's going in. These other things that we experience as part of life that we can't see, yet we understand exist. We know that thoughts exist. I can't tell you that you weren't thinking what you were thinking yesterday. I can't tell you that you're not feeling what you're feeling right now. And, you say, yes, you are. And then I say, prove it. You can't prove it. I mean, you can start crying, but that's not going to prove anything. We can't feel it. We can't see it. We can't physically touch it. But the way that we manipulate it is the way that we manipulate everything in that domain, which is in an intangible way. And I know this may be like I feel like I'm explaining this in a way that's pretty straightforward, but, it can be something that seems kind of out there. But at the end of the day, this is what happens. You think something and an emotion follows, or an emotion comes up and then thoughts start to follow from that. And as we realize that this relationship exists, and more importantly, that there is power in the understanding of this relationship, we can start living our lives in a more intentional way. And not saying that we're not living our lives intentionally now, but sometimes we don't intend to feel that bad emotion. Sometimes we don't intend to start thinking negative things when we fall against some kind of challenge in our lives. But as we realize that we have power in different situations and different magnitudes to control the things that we're feeling internally, we can start living more intentionally in every single sense of the word, not only in the actionable steps that we take, but in also the way that we're feeling as we're taking those steps. And that's something that's so big. It's like, when you find something that you care about, whether it's like, a job that you care about or just taking care of your family, you put love into it. You put that energy that it makes you feel, you put that back into it because that's just what radiates. But again, if we're not in control of that, if we're not at least mindful of the fact that these different things are impacting us and that there's this relationship that exists, then we're just going to be moving like the grass and the trees and the wind. It's going to constantly move us from side to side, not realizing that we are in control of the breeze in different degrees. Now, I don't want to make it seem like, emotions, you can just drop them like that. It's not something that's that easy because, again, they are very powerful things and they move us and they create very physical things in our world. Like amazing things have been created because of the emotions that people express. So we are not here to deny them. We're not here to wash them away or to even remove them from our existence. But we want to just create empowerment within ourselves to realize these emotions and thoughts are being generated from me. I must have some control over this. And we do. As I've spoken about before in that example where, you can be walking down the street and someone says, that shirt's stupid. It's someone that you don't know, someone that you don't really care about. You don't hold on to that emotion of just like what that would make you feel from them thinking your shirt's stupid. But you go to someone that you care about, someone that you love and like you value them, and they say, that shirt's stupid. Now you're feeling something inside. The same external stimuli is going inside of you, but you're responding differently. That is control. In that situation where you saw that stranger, you brought yourself to control your emotional state and say like, that doesn't bother me, that I'm not fazed by that. Yet your guard was down in the situation when there was someone that you cared about. And you kind of just let that negative thought come in and kind of plant itself as being a reality. And that's not true. It's just as real as that stranger that told you that and that you completely dismissed. Something that we have to understand is that emotions, they are very powerful and they allow us to kind of let our guard down in certain situations. Now, I'm not saying that we have to keep our guard up at any rate like that because that limits us from living our lives. But to notice that those two situations are one and the same. The stranger telling you that the shirt's stupid and this loved one that's telling you that the shirt's stupid. It's coming from two different people. You don't have to lose the love that you have for that person that you care about, but you can dismiss their idea. You can not hold on to that if you don't want to. But a lot of times we don't feel like we have that power when it comes to someone or something that is closer to us. And that's just because we have more emotional ties to it. So there are more things that we have to kind of go through in order to dismiss that, in order to change it. And this is when I say we have control in varying degrees. Because there are some things that we deal with that are incredibly impactful for our emotional state, our physical state, everything. It's like when you deal with loss, like that is something that you have to just deal with. You have to go through the motions with that. There's no wishing that away. There's no thinking that away through positive thoughts. You have to deal with that emotion. And at some point, you will slowly start to emerge into this place of greater empowerment within yourself, not only realizing that you went through this incredibly dark time, still going through this dark time, and still moving forward. That is a strength. And as you continue to make those steps forward after this loss, you'll realize that you have more and more strength. And although the emotion won't go away, maybe you hear a song or see something that reminds you of this person, the emotion will still come up. But your strength in where you want to go in your life, the things that you want to do, maybe you won't break down in the middle of work because of your feelings towards this. Maybe you can be a little more attentive to your family because you're starting to process it in a more meaningful way. And that's what really takes place a lot of times with emotion. It's processing. We have to process these things. As I've spoken about time and time again, we have to notice it. We have to uncover it before we can do anything with it. And that's the same thing with these emotions. And they can be more difficult because they are in this intangible space. But it doesn't mean that we have to neglect the idea of looking at them. So when we deal with something, when we feel an emotion, process it. Understand what it means for you in this moment. Understand what it's making you feel right now in this moment. And then start thinking about what you want to feel, what you want to do, where you want to be. And it doesn't have to come all in one step. It can come in small little increments. But as you start processing that and recognizing what you're feeling, you can start processing how you want your life to look moving forward, because it's constantly moving forward. But when you gain that control, when you recognize that you have that control over the processing process and the shifting process, the metamorphosis, so to speak, of these emotions, as you control that and as you understand that you have that power over that, we can start, again, moving more intentionally in those different steps in our lives. We can say, this is something that has hurt me. This is something that will continue to be with me forever. But I have love in my life, and I have passions that I wish to accomplish and want to move forward for. And with that, we can start to shift our lens, so to speak, in the direction that we want to have it dominated in. And again, no matter how we shift our lens, if you experience loss or something that's heavy for you to handle, then it's going to come back up. But know that as you focus your lens more and more, you'll realize that these emotions are adding to your livelihood. That loss that you feel, you'll realize that that person is giving you strength in this moment. And that our memories and that the things that we go through, the pains and the struggles that we go through, they're not for nothing. All the processing that we've done, it's not for nothing. It's to empower us. But they can't empower us until we allow them to do that. Many times we just sit and we feel as though the emotions have us in their grasp. This thing that's within us is controlling us. And that's not necessarily the case, but it can be the case. And the biggest thing I want to get into, because I know this episode can be incredibly long with just speaking about just emotions and the impact that it has over us, but the biggest thing that I just want to get across with this idea is that emotions are very powerful. Emotions are very present. We know that they exist. But we also have to recognize that there is some degree of decision that we have when we are going through our lives and going through these different experiences. And no matter what you're going through, feel that feeling. I'm not telling you not to feel that feeling again. Feel what you're feeling, but know that you are not a product of that emotion. That emotion is a product of you. And it's a product of what you're manifesting and what you're creating and what you're processing. So process it, understand it, but know that you are the ultimate controller. And whenever you're ready to take that control, whenever you're ready to take that next step in whatever part of the processing cycle that you're in, when you're ready to take that next step, know that you have the control to do that. And again, emotions are something that's so confusing, so powerful, so immense, and I know that the words that I'm saying may not resonate with you, and they may be something that maybe you immediately want to dismiss, but these are all things that we've accepted in different parts of our lives, through different experiences that we've had, through different life changes that we've gone through. These are all things that we've done before. Whether it's helping a friend by sitting with them when they're having a hard time and, being with them in that emotion, that can be something so beautiful and amazing and can help them to feel better and help you to just build this connection with this other individual. But in that same light, you can also, bring them joy in their lives, bring someone else joy and happiness in their lives when they are feeling down. And just as we can do this for other people, we can also do this for ourselves. And that's all I'm getting at, is that in whatever degree you feel empowered for, just know that you have the power to shift the lens, so to speak. And as we realize we are the ones that's guiding that lens in the direction that we want to see, we'll start bringing more power into each and every situation. And as we do that, there will be less and less things that will disempower us. As we go on this journey of wanting to live the best life that we can, love as much as we can, and have all of the bounty that we desire in our lives, whether that's, again, a fruitful family or a job that is fulfilling in every way. whatever that may be, we have to recognize that our emotions are impacting that. And the more and more in tune become with that vibration of our emotion, the more control we have over the direction that we're allowing them to take us. Because emotions will ride us throughout our lives. I'm not asking people to become emotionless in any kind of way, but the love and the passion and the excitement in life, that's speaking to your true nature of who you are. And when we start moving towards that and living in that and knowing that we can create that for ourselves in our lives, then that's when we recognize the power of shifting that lens in, and we start directing it in the direction that we want to have it in. So I feel like this idea of emotions, it's something that it's so big and it's very expansive, and I feel as though there's definitely going to be a follow-up on this at some point. But there's just this idea of emotions that I've been thinking a lot about recently, and I'm not saying that just because you have control over emotions doesn't mean you're going to stop feeling negative emotions or the things that have negative vibrations associated with them, because again, nothing is bad necessarily, but they're just indicative. They tell us something that's going on inside. And as I, recognize the truth in the control that we have over our emotions, it doesn't mean that I haven't felt extreme emotions over the past few weeks as I've thought about this idea of emotions. Things have come up, and as they come up, sometimes they're very confusing, sometimes they're very overwhelming, but when we sit back and we kind of process them, what does this mean for me? Why am I feeling this right now? Sit with that emotion, understand it. But then once you understand it and you're like, okay, now I know what this is, then do what you want with it. And as these have come up for me, again, emotions come up all the time. As I was thinking about just doing this episode, emotions came up for me. Like, different emotions come up for me all the time. But we notice them, and we notice how we want to have them impact our next steps, because that's what's always happening. The emotions, the experiences, everything that we're dealing with right this moment, they're going to impact our next steps forward. So all I'm asking is that we take a critical look at these things that we're feeling and how they're impacting our lives, and recognize how we want our lives to be impacted and how these things may be going against that. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a follow-up on this episode, because I feel like there's just a lot more to speak about with this idea of emotions, and I, again, don't want anyone to feel as though they're being judged or being, told to live their life in a different way. Nothing like that. More or less to give food for thought. And again, if this is something that you feel as though resonates in some kind of way, or you can think of some example of where this has happened before, all you need is that one example. And then you can start bringing that into different parts of your life and realize whatever truth that means for you. So yeah, again, that's all I have for this episode. I hope you all live your best lives. I'm always hoping that, and I never know who's listening, but I truly hope the best for you and everything that you strive for in this life. And yeah, if you have any thoughts or ideas or anything that you'd like to share, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can join any of the social media groups: Instagram, everything.sunpodcast, Twitter @everysunpodcast, and the Facebook group @everysunpodcast as well. And yeah, that's all I got. I love you all, and I will see you next time.